picture being at a dinner party. The lighting is low, the wine is flowing, and everyone around the table is trading the usual polished, humble brags. The person to your left is talking about their latest disruptor startup venture.
Oh, yeah. And the person to your right is casually dropping hints about their wildly successful crypto portfolio.
Exactly. Or someone across the table is detailing their grueling, yet supposedly spiritually awakening backpacking trip across Europe. The energy is thick. It is highly competitive. And then it is your turn to share your ultimate life goal. You take a slow sip of your drink, look them dead in the eye, and say, "My dream is just to build a warm home." Cue the awkward, deafening silence.
Oh man, you can practically hear the ice melting in the glasses, right?
Literally.
It's the ultimate conversation stopper in that kind of environment because I mean, people are leaning in fully expecting this grand declaration of conquest or, some ambitious 5-year
They
plan.
want the hustle.
Exactly. And instead, you give them a declaration of nesting to a room full of people who are just completely obsessed with outward expansion. Looking inward feels totally alien.
It does. In a room full of people trying to conquer the globe, you just announced you want to, pick out curtains and maybe get a nice rug.
Yeah.
But, our deep dive today is entirely focused on this exact scenario. We are exploring why this seemingly ordinary or maybe even quaint old-fashioned dream is actually one of the most radical, courageous, and profound choices a person can make in our modern world. So, okay, let's unpack this. Why does saying, "I want a warm home," make people so visibly uncomfortable?
Well, what's fascinating here is that we live in a culture that explicitly equates human value with external milestones. From a very young age, we're essentially conditioned to believe that your worth is measured entirely by how far you can project your influence outward into the world.
Like reaching as many people as possible.
Right. Wealth, status, travel, career advancement, these are loud, highly visible metrics. You can put them on a resume, you can post them online.
Yeah, you get the likes in the comments.
Exactly. So when someone claims that a simple, warm home is their ultimate goal to the outside observer, it registers as a lack of ambition. It looks like you're just, opting out of the race entirely.
It looks like you're settling. Like you couldn't hack it in the real world, so you just retreated.
But when you actually observe human behavior and look at what it takes to build a lasting foundation, the reality is the exact opposite. It requires a tremendous amount of bravery to prioritize a home.
How so? Because most people would say the opposite.
Because when you're constantly chasing external success, you can use busyness as this incredibly effective shield. You can use your 80-hour work week, your constant travel, your side hustles to basically avoid looking at your deepest, most fundamental human need, which is the need for genuine connection and belonging.
Wow, so the hustle is almost a distraction.
Oh, absolutely. Choosing to focus inward, to actually look at your need for belonging and say, no, this is what actually matters, it means intentionally stripping away all those shiny external distractions. A home doesn't need to prove anything to the outside world. It only answers to the people inside it. And that is a very heavy, very precious responsibility.
I mean, it makes me think of modern life as this incredibly frantic, high-stakes video game. Society is constantly pushing you to go out and fight the next boss.
Oh, totally. The boss fights of life.
Right. The drill, you get the promotion, you buy the fancy car, secure the impressive title, curate the perfect social circle, and society gives you all these points and badges and rewards for winning those boss fights.
Yeah, everybody cheers.
But the game completely ignores the absolute necessity of the save room. Like, if you play video games, you know exactly what the save room is. It's that quiet space, the music changes to something really soothing, the monsters literally cannot reach you.
You're finally safe.
Yes. And it's the only place you can actually heal your character, restore your health, and reset before you go back out there. Our culture throws literal parades for the boss fights, but it completely ignores the quiet courage it takes to painstakingly build, maintain, and fiercely protect that save room.
Without that save room, the character eventually depletes entirely. They just crash because the external conquests become completely meaningless if there's nowhere to return to, nowhere to take off that heavy armor.
Right. You can't wear the armor forever.
You can't. You can win all the battles, but if you're sleeping in the trenches every night, you are going to break down.
Okay, so if the home is the ultimate save room, what does it actually look like? Because it is very clearly not about the aesthetic. Like, we're not talking about square footage here. It doesn't matter if your kitchen countertops are imported marble or just chipped laminate.
Right. Not at all. Or whether your furniture is designer or literally pulled off a curb. The aesthetic is just set dressing. A genuinely warm home is defined by a single, incredibly powerful physical and emotional sensation. It's the feeling of being caught.
Being caught, like closing your eyes, falling backward, and trusting someone is actually there to grab you before you hit the floor.
Exactly. Think about the physical relief of that moment. It happens the second the front door clicks shut behind you. You spend your entire day out in the world wearing this heavy, exhausting social mask.
Oh, I know that mask.
Right. We all do. You constantly modulate your voice. You hide your frustrations. You suck in your stomach. You trim your feelings and reactions into these shapes that are socially acceptable for your boss, your clients, or just total strangers on the street.
You are constantly on guard. Like you are literally holding your breath, emotionally speaking, for 8 to 10 hours a day.
And then you walk through that door and the mask finally comes off. The sensation of being caught means you do not have to perform anymore. You don't have to be perfect or witty or accommodating.
You can just exist.
Yes, you can drop your heavy bags, let your shoulders slump, look at the person across from you and say, I had a terrible day and I feel like I'm falling apart. And the profound warmth of the home is knowing that this person is not going to judge you.
They aren't going to try to fix it right away either.
Exactly, no toxic positivity. They aren't going to run away. They're simply going to bear the weight of your reality with you. They catch you.
Wait, but hold on. I have to push back here. Because if this save room is supposed to be the ultimate safe haven where I'll go to heal, then fighting with my partner completely ruins that, doesn't it? Shouldn't a truly safe, warm home be the one place where there is zero conflict? Like, if we are having a massive, sharp collision in the living room, hasn't the warmth essentially failed?
You know, that is probably the most common trap people fall into when trying to build a life together. We confuse warmth with the complete absence of friction, but a home without any conflict isn't warm, it's repressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, if two human beings are living together and never ever disagreeing, someone is hiding a massive part of themselves. They're swallowing their true feelings, biting their tongue, and quietly building resentment just to maintain this fragile artificial peace.
Oh, wow. So they're basically keeping the social mask on even inside the house.
Yeah.
The save room is totally compromised at that point.
Exactly. True warmth has to be resilient enough to survive real, sharp, ugly collisions. Because when you invite another human being into your life, you aren't just inviting their good mood on a Saturday afternoon.
Right, you get the whole package.
You are inviting their entire history, their past hurts, their bizarre quirks, their insecurities, their worst habits. Friction is just inevitable. But a heated argument is actually proof that the relationship can handle the entire person, flaws and all.
I mean, it's really the difference between building a house made of glass and a house made of stone, isn't it?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because the glass house looks beautiful. It was perfectly peaceful and flawless from the outside. But you have to tiptoe around inside it, terrified. Because one thrown stone, one raised voice, and the whole thing shatters into a million pieces. The stone house isn't nearly as shiny, but it can take a massive storm.
And that is the profound promise of a truly warm home. It's not saying, I love you because you're perfect and easy to be around. It is saying, I love the complete you. I love you even when you're being incredibly frustrating.
Right. I love the real you, not my imaginary perfect version of you.
Exactly. When you can have a door-slamming argument and still know deep in your bones that neither of you is actually packing a bag and leaving, that is when you experience real warmth. The warmth isn't the absence of the storm, it's the active choice to stay in the room after the lightning strikes.
Okay, so this brings us to the actual construction phase. Because a stone house that can withstand those messy, heavy collisions doesn't just magically appear the moment two people sign a lease together and unpack their boxes.
No, definitely not.
You can't just throw two people in a room and expect them to naturally know how to de-escalate and catch each other. There is a hidden architecture you have to deliberately build, right?
Yes, and building that architecture requires 3 foundational blocks. The first one is irreplaceable time.
And we need to be clear here. We are not talking about leftover scrap time. We aren't talking about that exhausted 30 minutes right before you pass out, where you are both lying in bed, bathed in the blue light of your phones, half watching a streaming show, and occasionally grunting at each other.
Right, that doesn't count. No, it requires prioritized, dedicated time. It means deliberately carving out a space in the day, putting the screens completely in another room, looking the other person in the eyes and asking, how was your day?
And actually listening.
Yes. And this is the hard part, actually listening to the answer without waiting for your turn to speak. It's about signaling to the other person through your completely undivided attention that they are the single most important thing in your immediate reality.
I love that. And the second building block is what you might call micro choices. And I find this fascinating because it is so incredibly unglamorous.
It really is.
It's the invisible daily decisions that absolutely no one will ever applaud you for. Like, picture a random Tuesday. It's 7:00 p.m., you had a nightmare commute, your boss sent a passive-aggressive email. At the end of the day, you are running on empty, and you just want to snap at whoever is closest.
We've all been there.
Right.
Yeah.
So a micro choice is swallowing that instinct and choosing to use a gentle tone of voice anyway. It's choosing to apologize first when you know you were being a little bit irrational. It's choosing to take a breath and try to understand why your partner is upset instead of instantly throwing up your defenses and assigning blame.
Those micro choices are literally the mortar between the bricks of that stone house. Without them, the walls slowly crumble over time. But there is a third building block, and it might be the most crucial for long-term survival, which actually surprises a lot of people. Healthy boundaries.
Yeah, this one feels very counterintuitive. Because if the whole point is catching each other and sharing this deep, vulnerable space, where do boundaries fit in? Doesn't a boundary imply putting up a wall inside the save room?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, when you look at couples who actually succeed at this over decades, you realize that a warm home is formed by two complete distinct people deciding to share a life.
Not two halves making a whole.
Exactly. It's not two broken people desperately tying themselves together to survive. You catch each other, yes, but you do not live the other person's life for them. You can't be responsible for solving every single internal emotional struggle they face.
Because that would just be exhausting.
It's impossible. Boundaries prevent the warmth of the home from turning into a suffocating, consuming fire. You have to maintain your own sense of self, your own hobbies, your own friendships, and your own emotional regulation. You do that so you actually have a surplus of warmth to bring back to the shared space.
So it's essentially relentless home maintenance. Building warmth isn't some grand ribbon-cutting ceremony with confetti and giant novelty scissors and a round of applause. It's just being the person who quietly checks the plumbing, tightens the loose screws on the cabinet, and changes the burnout light bulbs every single day, year after year, without ever asking for a medal.
Yeah, you do it simply because you want the house to stay standing.
And committing to that daily maintenance requires a very specific psychological posture, which leads us to what is arguably the biggest plot twist in how we understand relationships. It is a fundamental shift that changes everything about how a home operates.
It really does.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because almost everyone falls into this massive invisible trap. We treat the dream of a warm home as a passive goal. We frame the entire quest as, I need to find someone who will love me.
Waiting to be loved. It is a very natural human survival instinct, but as a primary strategy for building a lasting home, it is a recipe for anxiety and eventual collapse.
But why? Why is waiting to be loved so dangerous? I mean, if I just want someone to care for me, how does that hurt the home?
Because it places you in a permanent state of passivity and fragility. If your entire experience of warmth, your entire sense of safety depends on someone else deciding to give it to you today, you become inherently anxious. You start operating from a place of intense scarcity.
You're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right. You tiptoe around, you hide your true feelings because you're terrified that if you do something wrong, if you're too messy or too demanding, they'll just withdraw their love and you will be left freezing in the dark.
Wow.
You're constantly monitoring the relationship, checking the meter to see if you are still receiving your daily quota of warmth.
I have an analogy for this that I just can't stop thinking about. It is the exact difference between standing next to a cold, empty fireplace, shivering, rubbing your arms, and just desperately hoping that someone else walks into the room, notices you are cold, and decides to strike a match.
Yeah.
You are completely at their mercy. The revolutionary shift here is moving from waiting to be loved to choosing to love, is walking into the room, carrying your own armful of firewood, kneeling down, and striking the match yourself.
And when you carry your own firewood, you completely alter the power dynamic of your own emotional state. You're no longer this helpless, passive recipient. You are the source of the heat. And the beautiful paradox of human connection is that by choosing to generate warmth for someone else, You inherently warm yourself in the
That
process.
makes so much
You
sense.
stop frantically checking the thermostat to see if your partner left the heater on because you brought the fire. You shift from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance.
But wait, let's get real for a second. It is incredibly easy to sit here on a deep dive and say, just be the one to bring the firewood. But
So,
if someone is carrying a lot of baggage, if they've been betrayed or rejected in the past, how do they actually override that screaming survival instinct to withhold affection? Doesn't always being the one to love first just lead to burnout. Like, aren't you just becoming a martyr?
That is exactly why we had to discuss boundaries before we discuss this mindset shift. Choosing to love is not about martyrdom. It is not about constantly pouring from an empty cup into a black hole of a person who gives absolutely nothing in return.
Right, that's just a bad situation.
That is self-destruction, not warmth. This entire concept relies on the premise that two healthy, willing individuals are coming together. When both people make the internal, courageous shift to be the starting point of warmth, you suddenly have two simultaneous heat sources in the room.
Both people are bringing firewood.
Exactly. Both people are bringing firewood. And when that happens, the temperature of the home rises naturally, effortlessly, without this exhausting transactional ledger of constantly keeping score of who did what for whom.
It changes the entire atmosphere of the house.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we have these two heat sources, this blazing fire built on unglamorous micro choices and healthy boundaries, what does it actually look like in practice?
Yeah.
Because movies and pop culture have totally conditioned us to expect romance to look like these cinematic grand gestures, right?
Oh, the grand gestures.
Yeah, sprinting through the airport terminal, kissing in the pouring rain, holding a boombox outside a window. But when you look at real, enduring warmth, it paints a very, very different picture.
It absolutely finds the ultimate profound romance in the mundane. Like, to an outside observer, this blazing fire we are talking about might actually look incredibly, hilariously boring.
Completely boring. It's the sleepy, mumbled, good morning, when you both have terrible morning breath, crusty eyes, and messy hair, and you love them anyway.
Yep.
It's driving home late from a miserable, soul-crushing shift at work, pulling into the driveway in the pitch black, and seeing that your partner left one specific dim lamp on in the living room just so you wouldn't have to walk into a dark, empty house.
It is the comfortable, sprawling silence. It's the ability to sit in the exact same room, one person reading a book on the couch, the other doing a crossword puzzle at the table for 2 hours without feeling any anxious need to fill the air with useless chatter just to prove that the connection still exists. The silence itself becomes this heavy, comforting blanket.
And my absolute favorite detail of this mundane romance, it's the way you break a Cold War.
Oh,
You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've had a stupid, escalating argument about, I don't know, how to load the dishwasher properly. You've both dug your heels in. You've been stomping around the house, aggressively avoiding eye contact for 3 hours. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife.
we've all been there.
And finally, one of you shuffles into the kitchen, stares at the linoleum floor, and awkwardly mumbles, "Are you hungry? Should I boil some noodles?"
That awkward bowl of noodles is the ultimate olive branch. It is a profound, echoing declaration of love disguised as a terribly boring, everyday question.
It really is.
What that person is really saying is, I am still incredibly mad at you. I still think you load the bowls completely wrong, but I also want to make sure you are fed. The stone house is still standing. I am still here.
But we also have to talk about the reality of time. Because even the warmest, most resilient stone homes experience what we can call the winter.
Yes. There will be seasons in any long-term bond that are just profoundly, achingly difficult. These aren't just bad afternoons. These are seasons of deep disappointment where expectations are fundamentally unmet. Seasons of sheer grinding exhaustion where life just depletes both of you to the point where you have nothing left to give.
Sometimes it's just hard.
It is. You might even experience stretches of intense loneliness while lying in bed right next to the person you love most.
And when people hit that winter, the immediate visceral reaction is panic. Like the save room is glitching, the monsters breached the walls, the firewood is wet, the warmth is completely gone, and this home is irreparably broken.
But the secret of couples who actually make it through is that they reframe this entirely. These periods of cold are not failures of the home, they're simply seasons. Just as winter is an unavoidable, natural part of the Earth's cycle, periods of distance and coldness are a natural part of two complex human lives intertwining over decades.
You just have to weather it.
Exactly. The resilience of a warm home isn't about frantically trying to prevent winter from ever arriving. That is an impossible, exhausting task. The true resilience lies in the deep, quiet, steadfast belief that the invisible thread between you hasn't actually snapped, even when the room feels freezing cold and dark. You trust that spring will eventually return, provided you both stay inside the house and just keep patiently trying to light the fire.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We are talking about something so fundamental, yet so incredibly difficult to actively achieve. I want you to pause for a second right where you are and just visualize your own life. Think about your day-to-day, or maybe yesterday. What was the most boring, utterly mundane moment that actually made your shoulders drop and made you feel perfectly safe?
That's a great exercise.
Was it the specific sound of someone's keys turning in the front door? Was it a random text in the middle of the workday asking if you wanted anything specific from the grocery store? That tiny, invisible feeling right there is the entire foundation of the dream.
It's about waking up to the monumental, life-altering value hiding inside those tiny, easily ignored interactions.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I keep coming back to the incredible beauty of this gentle yet fierce dream. We started by talking about how awkward it feels to admit this goal at a dinner party full of people desperately trying to conquer the world. But building a warm home isn't about conquering the world. It's about fiercely guarding a tiny, safe corner of it against the chaos outside.
It is a profound, deliberate act of creation. And for a lot of people, maybe most people, it is also a deeply profound act of healing. We all grew up in completely different environments. We carry the wonderful gifts from our childhood homes, absolutely. But we also carry the heavy scars and the dysfunctional habits.
And building a new home as an adult gives us this incredible redemptive opportunity. We actually have the power to break the cycle. We get to ensure we are passing down gifts instead of pain. We get to decide the exact temperature of this new house. We get to spend our entire lives on this quiet, unglamorous project, working every single day to just be able to look at the people we love as they walk through the door and say, I am here. You are safe. Welcome home.
That is the true weight and the true glory of the dream. And as you go forward this week and think about the invisible architecture of your own life, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If building a new home is partly about answering and healing the scars of our past, think deeply about the home you grew up in. What is the one invisible rule, the one unspoken toxic expectation from your childhood that you are actively, consciously choosing not to build into the foundation of your new home?
What a powerful, heavy question to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Keep exploring the deep end, and we will catch you next time.